Hey guys, good morning, creator mom. Why do some things happen fast and like some things don't, right? Like in terms of like praying for something or desiring something. Like I was thinking about this, especially with the whole thing with the black bags that I got for my hay. It's just, I needed black trash bags, or I didn't even need them. I was contemplating how to store the hay that I got, the 2 bales of hay, and I thought maybe 2 big giant trash bags to kind of just cover it, you know. Then lo and behold, I go to the drop some things in a donation box, and what do I find? Exactly a leftover roll of black bags with exactly 2 black trash bags. I have 2, just the amount that I needed. And I'm like, okay, all right, awesome. You know, I'm like, that's funny. That came through quick. But I was like, why do some things happen like that, you know? And then I thought, then I realized that, oh yeah, okay, well, duh, because getting black bags doesn't change anything in my life. It doesn't, I'm not afraid of, oh, if I get those black bags, how is that going to change things for me? Or what are the implications of that? What things are going to have to change? That is where the resistance comes in with some things that I want, right? Like, oh, I want this, but then my mind starts going off and thinking, well, if I got that, then I'd have to do this, and maybe this would change, and I'd have to change that, or I'd have to go through this or that. You know, I will give examples without being too specific or whatever. But, you know, I mean, okay, let's just, the old example about money, that's always a good one, because, like, there are things that we fear about money and about having money, and you can feel it, you feel it. There are, like, little fears and resistances, but sometimes you don't have the words for it. But if you question and the feeling in the moment, like, oh, okay, like, I want to generate 10 grand a month, right? Like, oh, I want that, yeah, I would like that, that would be great, right? But then what happens is the mind gets caught up in all the things that might change, or the implications of making that much money, or, yeah, like what things would change if, and what things would I have to change if I generated this amount of income? How would my life change, right? Getting black bags, my life doesn't change at all. It has no implications. Making a huge life change, such as a big income, a job change, a divorce, you know, say you want a divorce, but then you're like, you know, you want that, but like, oh my God, it's like, what are the implications of that, right? So it's like stuff that comes with a lot of like personal change probably has like more resistance to it, and probably is why that like it takes longer or something like that, you know, and which is what I heard other like manifestation people saying, but I hadn't really like experienced yet or really realized in my own self yet. But now the more inner work that I'm doing, I'm like, oh yeah, like that is what it is. It's all the changes and the implications that I'm afraid of. It's the fear of all that change. So yeah, just kind of like working with ourselves, working with with the fear. Excuse me. And on a side note, I was doing these yoga classes that were geared towards the inner critic. And like in one video, she's like, you know, talking about befriending the inner critic. And I find myself very like uncomfortable with that feeling of befriending the inner critic, because I think the inner critic's mean. Like, I hate my inner critic, right? But that's obviously like, that could be troublesome, because like I'm hating a part of myself actually. And I was thinking about how maybe how I relate to my inner critic affects how I relate to people on the outside of me, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, that was just something to consider. And my therapist actually explained the inner critic like this. You know, if somebody is being antagonizing towards you, and you say, hey, get the fuck out of here, you know, get away, go, you're like, you're not welcome here, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is that person gonna want to do more of? They're gonna want to antagonize you more likely. They're not gonna be like, oh, okay, like, I'll just leave you alone. They're gonna like, it's gonna like increase resistance. So you know, she likened that to the inner critic, right? And if there's a person who's just antagonizing and being a, you know, a jerk and stuff, and you say, hey buddy, what's going on? Is everything all right? You know, something bothering you? You know, kind of like take a softer approach. Things that may help to soften things with the inner critic. And I found myself being afraid that if I befriended the inner critic, that I would be overcome by the inner critic. That I have to resist it and hate it in order to not be overcome by it. But I guess, just like everything fucking in truth, I guess you could say, it's paradoxical, right? So yeah, just kind of like sitting with the inner critic and being like, okay, like what's going on here? Like, inquiring, whatever, that whole jig. And then deciding and making a choice. Okay, like, do I agree with my inner critic in this point in time? Or do I not? Is what the inner critic saying aligning with my core values and my core self? You know, because you don't have to listen to the inner critic, but just having a softened attitude towards it apparently can be helpful. Alright, that's all I have to say this morning. Have a wonderful freaking Wednesday.